Hello, everybody. Welcome to Decentral Lens, your most important weekly crypto news. Huge stories this week. I am Blue Toshi, and on my right is the infamous Disco. Disco, how are we doing today?
I'm good. I like the infamous moniker that gets me a little excited and gets me charged up to dig into this week's show.
Someone's got to say it, right? So we got a lot of cool stuff this week. We didn't go live last week because of the July 4th holiday, but we did record a show, so check that out. And we've got a new set, if you guys haven't seen it, with new like little TV screens. So we're super excited about that. For those listening, just imagine a beautiful widescreen TV with any topic we're talking about, cool AI art mixed with images of companies and things we're talking about all up there for you to see in all their glory. So we got a fun show today, Disco. I'm excited. It's beautiful outside, but it's also beautiful inside here. So with that
We
said,
got we got a lot we got a lot of beauty to get into. Let's do it.
all right, cool. With that said, here's our opening.
Welcome to Decentral Lens, where lifelong friends Blutoshi and Disco navigate the ever-evolving crypto landscape. With genuine curiosity and a commitment to nuance as our North Star, we offer clear-eyed exploration. Our goal? To empower listeners with the tools and insights needed to flourish in this decentralized age.
All right. I still love that music so much.
I know, we go back and forth on the stuff sometimes, and then it's like, dude, it's pretty good. Like that, it still hits me a little bit. I like that jam.
It's super mellow, yeah. I'm a Pink Floyd guy and like a 12 beats per minute guy, and I've said that since the beginning. But slow and steady keeps my brain, my ADD brain, I think, as calm as humanly possible. So tons of stories this week. It's funny when we go over them, we're like, well, I don't know. But when you add them up, like there's some threads and fabric and interweaving things that are all kind of like sinking at the same time, and it's we're in a bear. I mean, the top story obviously is Germany is dumping the crap out of its Bitcoin holdings. So Germany has 50,000 Bitcoin. I think it's 49,000, like 867 to be exact, that they've been dumping. And I did see that it is not actually the country of Germany that's doing it, but it is the region of Saxony. So it's some judge or judicial arm there that's just dumping this Bitcoin. But I don't know, Disco. We'll get to Mount Gox in a second, but let's just, they're both so important. That's why the price is going down. Either the dumping's making it go down or simply the FUD to go along with it, but it's down.
Yeah, it's down. I think we hit a low point last week of like 53.6. So it definitely has, stabilized a tad and recovered. And it's interesting. Yeah, you're saying it's Saxony. Like people are saying it's Germany. And I even remember last week on crypto Twitter, everyone's like getting behind, Spain when they were playing Germany in the Euro, because it's like, we had to have someone to be mad at and to team up against. So it was much easier to root for Spain, who ended up moving on yesterday. So we'll see what happens actually in an hour or so. We got a new game that'll figure out the final with England and Netherlands. So not to say I'm a little.
Spain's going to be tough to beat, and whoever they play, I don't think it matters. England's not looking all that great in this tournament, and the Netherlands, I think, got really lucky in the knockout rounds with who they played, and I don't see anybody. France is the only team I thought that had a chance against Spain, but we'll see. But sounds like
England,
rooting against
England's
Germany
kind of made their way in there, and it's like, I don't know if they're there. I think it's Spain's to lose right now. I agree with you for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they've been strong. I don't even know if they lost in the round robin stage. I don't think they did. They're passing and goal scoring is impressive from that 16-year-old kid who punched that one
that
in
was
the upper
awesome.
left corner. Holy crap. Hits the inside of the pole. And it's just like, that one was
perfect.
Yeah, that was with authority. That kid, whatever his name was, Yavin, that was just incredible. So Germany's dumping. So 50,000 Bitcoin. That's the number you need to know. They have 15,000 Bitcoin left. So that's 30% of the supply left. And they did this, Disco. I mean, I think they started, the news broke, what? We knew it was coming last week, but like Saturday, Sunday, Monday,
Yeah,
it was
they like
all hands on deck. And Monday, Tuesday, and today, they are just selling as much Bitcoin and as fast as they can.
yeah, they totally are. And then you look at the offset, right? And you look at the what's happening and how it's being absorbed. And I don't know. I know I'm a permable or whatever, but it's pretty remarkable seeing, the ETF inflows kind of counter the Germany selling. And that's just, it's kind of we always talk about, people being opportunistic and looking for entry points and all that. And we've also talked about, the larger institutions, and states and everything like that wanting to get involved. So the weird part is, Germany's selling that. And then is another arm of it going to end up being pissed off that they are selling and want it. So it all kind of comes down to that.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I haven't looked at the inflow of the ETFs in the last couple of days. So you're saying it outpaced the Germany is a total 50,000 Bitcoin at $57,000 per Bitcoin is $2.8 billion. So I doubt you can outflow that. They've moved
No.
2 billion of that. So the inflows haven't been enough to cover that. But I mean, overall, obviously more than have, right?
Yeah, and this was an interesting thing from Eric, the big ETF guy. He tweeted, just for kicks, I ran the numbers. And last year, there were 500 ETFs launched. And we're halfway through 2024, and 76% of those are still under 121 million in assets. Raising 100 million total in the ETF Terror Dome is hard for a newbie. Yet IBIT has taken in over 100 million in a day 60 times since launching. So that just really kind of put it into perspective to me on the strength of the institutional inflow. And if we can remain relatively stable with these, and I don't say FUD when it is, honestly, selling of it, right? So that is on the market and it is being dumped. Like that's not made up. But for us to be able to withstand that and have a pretty strong backbone, pretty close to the all-time highs is pretty impressive if you look at it from that lens.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a bigger picture, from 10, 30,000 feet, the fact that the ETFs came out before, because remember Mount Gox, that FUD of when those coins would dump, like I was hearing that stuff back in like 2016, 2017, 20, like that, this FUD has been on the table for a decade, right? And just looking at the numbers here, BlackRock's fund IBIT has 18 billion in Bitcoin under management on ETF. 18 billion. Number two, where's Fidelity at 9.5 billion. It's amazing how that they're just literally cut in half, but still a huge number. And then ARK and BitB have over 2 billion apiece for a total. The net in is 15 billion because remember GBTC has lost 18 billion total. So IBIT has made up every penny of GBTC, and then the net up is 15 billion. So obviously that's plenty to cover the 2.8 billion of Germany. These ETFs have been live for, I'm going to say 120 days now. So it's, it's been about a third of a year, right? So in the long run, certainly nothing to worry about. Not financial advice, as we always say, but probably a pretty good time to be nibbling on Bitcoin. And whether it's, in your own hardware wallet, which we always recommend, but if you do have some retirement accounts, maybe nibbling on some of these ETFs as well.
Yeah, I don't have yesterday's numbers, but on Monday, the U.S. listed spot ETFs had nearly 300 million in new inflows. So we're talking pretty stout, opportunistic buying from the ETFs for sure.
Yeah, we've got it on the screen now. July 8th, which was Monday, was 294, so 300 million. And yesterday was 216 million. And obviously today is not closed yet. So the last 3 days have been net up quite nicely over 100 million each. So, it's all headed in the right direction. But Germany and Mount Gox, I mean, remember Mount Gox, people forget this. They lost 950,000 Bitcoin, 950,000. So remember, Germany is selling off 50,000 Bitcoin. That's 2.8 billion. Just multiply that by 20. So what's 2 times 20? So 40, 50,
40.
60 billion. I mean, just insane amounts. But remember, most of that was quote unquote lost. If you follow Truth Labs, like that trail of where the Bitcoin went after, a lot of it went to the Ethereum for the ICO. A lot of it went to really weird places, but only 142,000 of the Mt. Gox was recovered. 47,000 of those Bitcoin have been sent to the two Japanese banks, which are Bitbank and SBI. Apparently, people think that those guys immediately were like, yeah, we don't want them on our books. They had from 30 to 90 days. I think Kraken has 90 days for some reason, but it goes these there's like 5 international entities that are getting these. Some have 20 days and some have up to 90 days. But some rumors are that Japan has already distributed a lot of it since last Thursday or Friday over the weekend. So that 47,000 out of 140 is roughly a third, right? But we'll see. I want to buy more Bitcoin and stack more sats. I'm kind of waiting to know better if because Mt. Gox number obviously is triple Germany. So total, they're both about just under 200,000 Bitcoin, which is a crap ton. But I'm kind of waiting to see if Mt. Gox, if a lot of these people will sell. But the other fact you got to remember is that 76% of the people who held Bitcoin in Mt. Gox had already settled with these bigger entities who paid them 11 cents on the Bitcoin dollar. So basically, what? Yeah. So most of the people have already settled out and said, you know what, I'm sure in the last couple of years, they're like, this is going to take forever. I'll just take my 11% and get the hell out of here. So these big entities are going to have a cash cow coming in. Remember Bitcoin was, when Mt. Gox crashed, I bought it 250, but I think Mt. Gox, because there was a big buzz then, I think it was below 1,000, right? Or it was probably $200-$300. And now, we're at $57,000. So yeah, it's
technically the people that had it locked up for that long, their exposure or their position was, at let's say 1,000, and now we're looking at something at 58,000. So taking the 11% doesn't necessarily seem that out of line, because they're sitting there like, dude, I'm so far up on this. Like, let me get something, right?
Well, I think you might be looking at it a little differently. So but basically the small guys sold out to bigger entities who could afford, who were basically gambling that eventually it would come, and they want 100% of it. Right. So they were long, so they're getting it. So think of the minnows, 76% of the minnows or everyday Main Street people sold out to whales. I mean, or entities or companies or whatever, who, the question is, who are these companies? Are they exchanges? Are they individual like hedge funds? Are they going to hold now, or are they going to cash in some? I mean, think about it. Some of these funds that jumped on that and gave 11% out, they could cash in right now, or whatever hedge fund they have, like they could pepper in for the next couple of years and cover every loss and then some, right? So it'll be interesting to see if that money moves. I think the German money we know is selling, right? Yeah. Because it's literally a German governmental entity in Saxony who is selling. So that Bitcoin is being sold as fast as humanly possible. That is a true dump, but Mt. Gox, which is a much bigger number, we don't know yet. So a lot on the table. It's probably, this is the least convicted statement I'll ever make. It's probably a good time to buy Bitcoin. Like my best stock trade ever is when I bought Chipotle right at peak when they had the norovirus, and my family, I'm like, it's too convenient, it's too quick, you don't feel like crap after, like most fast
there's no hangover.
Yeah, so that, it took a couple of years, but it's like quintupled now. And trust me, I've had a lot of dumb stock picks or a lot of ones where I was right, but I think I'll be right in like 37 years. But this to me could be the norovirus moment. Because remember, once Mt. Gox FUD is over and all that's distributed, and we're 90 days from now or 200 days from now, when all the dust is settled, the German dust is going to settle this week. It went to 55 from mid 60s, and then it's already back to 57. So it went down with the FUD and the sell, but it's already getting absorbed. So it's probably a good sign.
But think of this. It also went down mostly when the US and other financial markets were closed over the weekend. You know what I mean? So you didn't have that potential offset of the inflows. So I'm curious. I think I'm fascinated by this of like, and I have FOMO always, but I'm sitting there like, how long do we have before, it kind of hockey sticks as we think it will? It's like, what's that area of opportunity where it's still, a tasty purchase, as opposed to that feeling of, oh God, it's left the station. I don't know where we're going to go.
Yeah, I guess I don't mind buying. Like I bought in the 70s. I don't mind buying there because, it's that FOMO mind versus the FUD mind. Right now we're in FUD mind. We're like, oh, I won't touch it now. And then it goes back to 70. You're like, I should have gotten another, a couple of 0.1s or whatever you can afford. But, it's a tough one because the site that your own psychology is always what's kind of moving against you there. So I think it's probably a good time to buy. I mean, Germany only has 30% left, and Mt. Gox, that's the big question mark of those 147,000 or 148,000. We know 47,000 were sent to the Japanese banks. They said they're distributing as fast as possible, but I just don't have feet on the ground to know if at least that third was distributed. So Mt. Gox is going to be the big one. And we know that Kraken and the other big ones, like the US ones, they have not received nor distributed yet. So 2/3 has yet to be distributed from the main Mt. Gox trustee wallet, if you will.
But it low-key makes me feel a little more secure in it, not just all being unloaded, that there was already kind of that, 11% purchasing and acquiring. So I don't think that it necessarily then lines up like it's going to be a complete, liquidation. So that's good context.
Yeah, probably more diamond hand folks for sure. Good point.
Yeah. And then one other thing to think about when you think about the FOMO and when's the time to buy is we're sitting here right now. Tomorrow morning at 8:30, we get the June CPI report, and you've seen some Fed folks out there kind of indicating that they think things might go pretty well. The numbers at 3.1 is the expectation. So that'll be interesting to see the impact tomorrow morning. If we can hit a number that's 3.1 or lower, it could be off to the races in the short term from, just the risk on sort of assets and overall market run. So it'll be interesting to see if we can be above or below the 3.1 tomorrow for CPI.
And is 3.1, could you explain a little more? Would that be good or would that be high?
Well, 3.1 is the expectation.
Oh, okay.
So if we get it hot, obviously there might be cheaper Bitcoin to buy in the short term. But if it comes in line or lower, then, it's a strong indicator that we'll be seeing rate cuts in a shorter period of time. And that would be a macro mover for risk on assets. So that might be like, oh, maybe I need to get some now before we see that number come one way or the other.
Yeah, it's so funny because the risk, what they see as risk on the most volatile thing,
I agree so much.
The most volatile thing to non-Bitcoiners and non-crypto folks is crypto and Bitcoin, right? But to those in the space, it's our safe haven. It's such a weird dichotomy. I guess it'll be interesting to see, when the Larry Finks and the Ark Bs, like, who are thinking more like us, like, no, this is the true store of value. Because I always run this scenario in my head. If things really get bad, like 2008 again, what's going to happen to Bitcoin immediately? And it seems like history would say that Bitcoin would tank immediately because people generally are so hedged. Panic. And but they're so extended and they're so leveraged in other trades. A lot of times you have to go to the more stable stuff. That's how I got screwed in 2008. I had super conservative, like oil and in countries that didn't have debt, and those went down even more. And I asked the company, it was actually Euro Pacific, who that's Peter Schiff and all the gold stuff. I know it's crazy the ties we have back, but they were like, everybody pulled from the winners to basically, because they got liquefied by the losers. Now, whether that's total bullshit or not, I don't know. That sounds like something the company that told me to buy these would say, but it sounded like a smart strategy. But if we have another kind of black swan event where everything goes down, I just suspect, just remember what happened at the beginning of COVID. Bitcoin went down. I don't know if it got into 3,000, but it was definitely in the mid 4,000 range. And I got 2 Bitcoin like that day. I was like, I don't know much about much, but if the world makes it through COVID, Bitcoin's going to be just fine. And it just skyrocketed up after that. It went, I don't know what it bounced back to, probably in the teens or something, but that panic didn't stay long. And I think we're going to have another panic if the market ever has a massive correction, and there'll be a huge buying opportunity for Bitcoin because of this dichotomy of all the people who think, all the normies think this is like the highest risk on asset there possibly is out there. And we don't see it that way. So by stacking sats, I'm almost like, well, do I keep a little to the side for that moment? But that's a lot to gamble on, you know?
Yeah. A lot of things need to line up, and I guess the theme goes back to one that you've said, and we've reiterated, Mount Gox, CPI. Bitcoin doesn't care, so it's just going to keep going. It doesn't really care. So we'll keep an eye on all that for sure, but it's a lot to process, but you're seeing it kind of be offset, and it's kind of a strong indicator, and not financial advice, but, make sure you have opportunities to take, because you might not have them again. One note I wanted to make just to anybody in the viewing or listening audience, we can be interactive with our set, despite the fact it looks so spectacular in terms of a newsroom, but you're able to interface with us by commenting. If you click into the Twitter feed or the X feed, you can comment, and we'd love to have a two-way conversation. So if there's anything we're saying that you guys have any thoughts about, or anything that you'd like to bring up, we'd certainly encourage the feedback. So just wanted to get that out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, good call, Disco. So yeah, let's move on to story 2.
Story 2. Wow. Well, this one, it gave me a bit of a shock when I saw this come across, and basically folks are getting sued for pulling funds out of Celsius within a window of when it kind of turned into the bankruptcy, right? So, but they're going after individual holders.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 5,000 individual holders that Celsius is going after. So basically the people who got out were smart enough to get out 90 days before the bankruptcy. That was 2 years ago. And remember, back then in 2022, Bitcoin ranged between 17,000. Yeah. I think it went in the 30s at some point. But the original thing was that they were going to go after them for the 2022 amount. So, which is douchey in and of itself. Because remember, all these central exchanges probably all have the same TOS, terms of service, and if we go bankrupt, like, the funds aren't yours, they're ours, and they're, it has to go through the whole bankruptcy process. And these people pulled out smartly before the bankruptcy happened, thought everything was fine, and now 2 years later are getting sued for this clawback at 2024 rates for Bitcoin. So conveniently, not only do they want it back, not only do these lawyers in Celsius, who's a piece of crap company who couldn't stay afloat anyway, they are going after them at the $60,000-$70,000 rate and not the $17,000 rate. And the fact that, again, honestly, we could talk about this for a while. Not your keys, not your fucking crypto. Like, How many times do we have to go through this? Like you had can I bring up the other guys? So,
yeah,
you had a problem with Gemini and they finally allowed you, like you finally were able to release your funds, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
my
good.
account was I have access to it now.
Yeah, so his account got frozen for basically no reason, and they asked him why. They like wanted his Ledger address and wanted him to like take a picture of his Ledger device, like not your keys, not your crypto. I mean, how else can you say it?
It's just such a bad feeling. And I'll get on my little empathetic horse, but I can only imagine the feeling in your stomach when you did something that was nothing to, no fault of your own. And you end up getting just a gut punch of, a letter from an attorney. Anytime that happens in life, right? You're on your heels. Like, what's this about, and then for you to be, getting kind of charged with doing, being your own fiduciary. Like, what is wrong with withdrawing, an investment from a platform because you don't feel like it's right? Like, you should not be punished for that. You're allowed to do that. So then for these lawyers to kind of gang up and scare people. And I really look at the emotional side of it. Like, you're just getting gut punched. Who do you turn to? Who's there? And I really think it's a time, I'll soapbox a bit, but I really think this is a big time for all of us to start having a concerted voice, supporting people on all ends who are getting basically victimized for doing the things that we say are the best practices. So we tell people the best thing is not your keys, not your crypto, self-custody, get that done. Then lo and behold, people do that and they sit for a tail 2 years and they get a letter from attorneys saying, hey, you're sued. Oh, and by that, we don't really care about your means. And if you can afford to do this, we're going to actually charge you at peak rates versus what you actually got out of it. So I think everybody needs to we've done a good job as an industry recently. We can talk about it in a little bit with, Washington and kind of getting our voice heard there, but we still got to protect everybody from a holistic perspective, because then no one should be taking these sort of barbs. No one should have to explain to their significant other, oh wait, I'm getting sued, but it's not real or whatever. Like, it's just such a dicey feeling. And it really motivates me to try to figure out how we can come together to fight these sort of people, because they're just coming in for the dollars. They're looking to intimidate. They're looking for settlements. They're looking for whatever they can get, and they don't own it and they don't deserve it.
Hallelujah.
I told you I was ready today, baby.
Damn. I have not seen, we've been doing this show for, I think we're probably at 9 months now, and I have not seen that fire. I love it. Yeah.
Well, it's just wrong, dude. And it's wrong for an exchange to tell me, hey, I got to get, pictures and do this. And you know what? Oh, it's under investigation. Usually we'll find out. We'll get this figured out in due time. If we need anything else from you, we'll let you know. Oh, thanks. How about if I need this from you? Access to my funds. What if I needed to pay my mortgage with that? Like, technically I should be able to do what the F I want with it. So, it's just, I don't know.
All right. Well, it's about time. God, I need to figure out ways to provoke the bear. I love it. Like, we've seen me rant, but that
building
and you have you have every right. And maybe honestly, being newer to crypto and, for folks who don't know us very well, we grew up together and, I got in crypto in 2015 and Disco got in 21, 22 or whatever.
Whatever the peak was.
The last peak. Yeah. But he's here, and that's a huge testament. So, but, in all of our conversations, I've been kind of the more jaded, ornery, grumpy one. And Disco's been like, yeah, but, there's a bright side and like, it's, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's cool to see you like, nobody wants to be jaded in this world. And we don't want to like, just go through and like, oh, the government's terrible at everything, which, it feels like the current administration, like it's hard not to come to that conclusion. We'll get to that in a minute, but it's cool to see you kind of like own the anger and the energy. Cause I've been feeling it for years and yeah, it's frustrating. Well, it's 3 Years Capital, FTX, Celsius. Like when FTX was around, remember in all the commercials, the Tom Brady's and whoever else was in those things, Larry David, and everybody asked me like, oh shit, I should probably get Bitcoin, right? Of course it was at a local top. So what do we Bitcoiners know about local tops? That's when everyone talks to you. So we try not to buy anymore at that point and let the the
The old
FOMO
bus stop.
carry through before, before it dips a little so you can buy again. But all these people were like, oh, I should use FTX, right? I'm like, no, no. Like if you're going to, in America, if you're going to do it, like use Kraken or use Coinbase. They've been around longer. They're way more honest. And I didn't know much about SBF, but you knew the guy was a douchebag, and he turned out to be a total crook criminal. But Three Arrows Capital, Celsius, like all these companies are just scumbags. But it's really it's a symptom of a much greater ill, which is the legalese of every time your iPhone forces an update on you and all the terms of service. Like, I own a marketing and development company, and the amount of things that I do daily where I'm like, oh, agree to the new terms of service. Sure. Yeah. I mean, and I read any contract that has to do with me or my family or my company. I read them thoroughly, but those terms of service, you're like, what am I going to know and just brick my iPhone? Like you're so hamstrung there. So when you see this, good for you for just getting so effing pissed off. Before I showed you the names of the lawyers who were the ones going after these 5,000 people, but it's just like, shame on you guys. Shame. Well,
a lot of it nice reference, but a lot of it comes to the whole, you got it. If something seems good, everyone was when I got into it, it was all about, oh, but you can make extra money staking. And the sexes really did kind of push it. It's like, oh, I see you purchased this. Why don't you want to make this % of it? Put it here. And it was like things were really going haywire. It was like when, Terra and all that stuff was happening. I'm like, dude, I got to get off of this. Right. And I took stuff off. I had it on a cold wallet or whatever. And then I got a note from one of the exchanges saying, hey, we're different. Everything we have is 1-to-1 back, So I foolishly, went off of that and then put some of the funds back into that exchange and put them into a staking program. And that was a staking program that ended up getting locked up for almost 2 years. And, long term, it all kind of worked out because I was able to hold through and, that kind of worked out. But I just think about the folks that are getting into the space. We need other people, to enjoy the space, to learn the benefits of it, right. and to go through that. And just having these people just predator the back end really, because it wasn't necessarily the exchange that was doing it and doing what was wrong, but it was who they were kind of third partying this staking to. So all of these restaking and all these things, I am staying away because I just don't know how it's going to shake out. And I will bet on, the overall asset going up as opposed to me like getting double returns on that. I'm wary of it. And that's just a lesson I've learned.
Yeah, 100%. And Gemini did, and they're the ones that locked up because of the partnership with whoever the parent company of GBTC is. But Gemini actually, the Winklevi did make good on it. But then now, I think there, especially, if you're coming out of New York, there are so many onerous rules that are getting put on these guys. And I'm sure the Gemini and the Kraken, to their defense, are like, we have to be so buttoned up or they're going to come after us 6 ways till Sunday. Now this Chevron doctrine and deference, like that could change all of this. And again, like you can see the tide turning, like we're definitely on offense, but just, it's funny because the whole Celsius, like again, the moral of the story is literally, if we wanted to make this a 10-second clip, we would have said, not your keys, not your crypto. Like if you can get a Trezor wallet or get a cold card, Ledger, sure, whatever, just get a hardware wallet and store all of your crypto there and test it, reuse it, make sure you back it up. Like this stuff happens over and over. And as we get new folks in this space, which we will do, that there's a blessing and a curse here. It's like the more you streamline and make everything invisible, like Polymarket has for like online, betting, the better it is and the more invisible it is and the more adoption you're going to get with crypto. But the other side is, do we, non-normies, do we have a responsibility to try and teach these guys about self-sovereignty, freedom of speech, self-custody, like what Zimmerman did way back in the day with PGP? I mean,
Yeah.
the answer is, yeah, we probably do. So, everyone out there, like, we came for the JPEGs and the degen, and we stayed for the freedom. So
Yeah.
Celsius, F you, and lawyers behind Celsius, F you.
That's what really is the tipping
Yeah.
point.
And MedX, who is the one who posted this and let everybody know. We wish you the best. Yeah. And if there's a fund or whatever, we'll donate to it. And, but we hope that works out for you. I mean, it was basically his entire, this was 2 years ago. Like, he might've spent it on a house. He might not be liquid at all. He basically said, like, because Bitcoin's 3 or 4x, his entire net worth could go back to the Celsius bankruptcy. And guess what he's going to get back? He's probably like last in line as like a creditor. So he's probably going to get, we'll go back to 11%, but he's going to get some, he'll get 11% of the 2022 number because of
it's
course.
Convenient. Yes.
Fuck you, Celsius.
Yeah, agreed. You mentioned in that Polymarket, and it's been interesting because we've been talking a lot about how a lot of people are really putting more eyes on what they're seeing there and looking at it as kind of a predictor or market indicator of a lot of different things. And it's obviously seen a huge rise with the U.S. election and a lot of inflows in terms of things like that. But it did turn out that they didn't get necessarily everything right.
Yeah.
There was an example of that last week. I don't know all of the intricacies of French politics, but I know that it's been pretty dicey and pretty contentious, as of late. And there was another election that came in, and basically, I'm not going to go political on it or anything, but what's interesting to me is that it was an indicator that the polls and Polymarket didn't necessarily have the most accurate read on what the results ended up being.
Yeah, so I can go into a little more detail on that. So basically, there's this far right party from, I believe, Marie Le Pen, who is the daughter of another super far right guy in France. And in Polymarket, the guess was that they absolutely were going to win the majority. Yeah, they were going to win the most seats. And here's the actual Polymarket election, and they actually it's under contention because this is a party, right? Whereas the one that won was a coalition, which I assume was a bunch of parties. So
Correct.
At first the story was, we thought, because right now we're always going to bring it obviously back to the US, but we thought, like, if we'll go back for a second, but in Polymarket, Trump is predicted to win the election. Where is it? 63%. Joe Biden, they're giving a 14% chance, which, I mean, I don't remember what Ronald Reagan won by. I think he had like an 80, or he was the last landslide. I remember as a kid, like, what's a landslide? Like, oh, it's where a politician scoops up pretty much every state. And so this one was kind of interesting to us. So everybody voted. The numbers were super high. You saw 99% said Le Pen would win in this Polymarket gambling site. You could bet on politics, you could bet on sports, you could bet on whatever. And we talk about it a lot in the show. And they did win if you just look at parties, but these coalitions formed and those aren't parties. So Disco, I think this is one, because what I thought was like, oh, this 63% Trump to 14% Biden presidential winner prediction is like, let's just throw that out the window because maybe Polymarket's audience is way far right leaning or something like that, and they're very biased. But this one, I don't think is one that, now we know, I don't think this disproves that Polymarket is accurate. I think, and Polymarket, to their defense, still has it. It was contested. They said, we're going to look into this. So now Polymarket has to determine, whereas this far right party, Le Pen's party, whatever it's called, is a party. This is known, but the coalition won. So does the coalition also count as a party? So
Yeah.
it's a
100.
technicality and it's stupid, but I think the main takeaway here is that it it doesn't necessarily, until we have our presidential election, which obviously is way more black and white. It's Trump or Biden, because we can't, heaven forbid,
As
if
of
we,
now.
yeah, well, our RFK would be awesome, but so we'll see. I don't think this negates, and I think because we look at Polymarket just for where things are indicating, I think this French one is more of a technicality than saying that gambling sites for outcomes of things don't work. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah, I agree 100%. But I think that one of the things that it kind of comes out from this, if you look at it, is, just like you were saying, reading the TOS and stuff, but like make sure that you understand the contract of what you're doing on these, because ultimately, you're basically taking a side or buying a share of a contract, which is going to be, kind of executed just like a smart contract, right? So you want to make sure that there aren't these kind of loopholes. That's kind of what that showed me with this, was you had the ensemble group, which was Macron's, covers a coalition, and that wasn't factored into
Right.
kind of the chart, or picking a lane in front of you. That happened to me. Full disclosure, with this was more of a legal gambling site in America, and when I first started wagering slightly on soccer, and I didn't understand in the beginning some of the things, like, a money line only reflects the first 90 minutes. It doesn't reflect over extra time, or penalty kicks or anything. So basically, if you pick Spain to win and it goes to a draw and then goes into extra time, you're not going to win your money line on that. So it's just, you got to kind of understand these nuances if you're going to get involved in these kind of predictive markets, and or sort of different sites where you're putting your asset in there for upside in terms of a gamble.
So you're saying read the TOS on these, or
I got totally, because I'm like, oh, Spain won, and then I was like, I didn't get the money, and then I'm like, oh, it's because we went to penalties. I didn't realize that. So you have to like do it, the thing is then to pick them to advance to the next round, as opposed to a money line for them to win the game, because that only counts for the 90 minutes.
right. It's funny because it's just like crypto. Like when you and I were degenning a little in Solana tokens with that CCG, like I think one of the purchases I made just like literally didn't work or didn't go through. Like when runes first came out, and it was the last block, and someone's like, that if you didn't bid high enough on fees, that you won't get it. I'm like, really? And I chalk that up obviously as a brand new technology and part of the learning curve, but with terms of service that seem to be trying to, I don't know, mislead a little or trick until you lose one. Like, I don't know why in Web 2 normie land that makes me so much angry, whereas in Bitcoin land, I guess because it's in Bitcoin land, I guess because there's no there's no service
Cap.
department, there's no support desk for Bitcoin. Be like, but I did pay enough gas. For like, yeah, dude, it's the network.
We don't care.
Yeah, but well, it's not. We don't care. It's just Bitcoin doesn't care, and Bitcoin does
Exactly.
as Bitcoin does, right? So maybe that's what you meant. But yeah, it's funny.
All right. So we were talking also a little bit about, we did the last show we did, we were talking about the Chevron and just the influence of the Supreme Court, and trying to see some of the, kind of long tail effects, and seeing kind of the implications of the reversal of the doctrine, right? And we saw it come to life in the last 24 hours with Uniswap going again against and at the SEC, and now they're weaving in the justification, or making the case that it's irrational for these investigations or charges or anything to continue based on the outcome of Chevron being overturned. So seeing that come to light and seeing that become a reality, we're going to see a lot of different aspects of that, but this is specifically, focused more on the DeFi space and how that's going to develop. So it was just kind of really fun in a weird way to see, okay, things we're talking about, things we're seeing from news become, policy, and become, kind of, strategy for some of the folks that we believe in.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. We asked last week on our show, how soon would the Chevron deference? I thought it was the Chevron defense, and it is the deference, I
Deferent.
guess. Yeah, so that shows you how hard it was for me to learn to read as a kid. I just like glance over and get the word wrong. But so already, what are we, a week later, or maybe now we're 2 weeks since, or 2 Fridays ago, so 10 days, and already Uniswap, like we were like, are people going to start using this against the SEC? Because that's one of the most blatant abuses of in this case the 1934 Exchange Act, which the SEC is inferring and basing Uniswap off of. And Uniswap's like, not only is that not true, and it wouldn't be true regardless, now you don't have the Chevron deference for which to hide and fall back on, where you can kind of unilaterally make that decision that yes, Uniswap is indeed an exchange, so thus would fall under the Howey test of 1934. And the anniversary of the 1934 Howey test, everybody, is in 10 years. So we are 90 effing years past this thing, because yeah, they could have predicted in the Great Depression of 1934 how to manage and handle crypto now. So again, Coinbase won on the offensive, right, against the SEC,
Yeah.
and now Uniswap is going against them. And basically they're saying it is not even permissible for you to interpret us as an exchange based on the Chevron doctrine, because the Chevron deference is no longer a valid
Yeah, you don't have the
defense.
authority.
This has to go now court case by court case, project or case by case. So not even all of crypto that they're trying to do. It has to be fought by every individual good crypto coin, every shit coin, everything would have to be fought there, which obviously could clog the courts. But it also goes to show you that at least with some of these U.S. governmental departments, the overreach has been massive, and it's completely stymied growth in this space, and it's made all of us in this space who do a lot and are good people, like they're trying to paint us as the bad guy, and hopefully those days are shifting. But good for Uniswap for going on the offensive, and the letter is very well written. It's very simply written, but
Yeah.
let's go. We're on offense.
Yeah. And so I'm going to kind of shift gears, because the next kind of batch of stuff is related to that to a degree, right? So we have a lot of news happening this week, specifically today in Washington, D.C., that's tied to, crypto overall. And, we keep going to the theme of it's good that we're kind of fighting and getting our voice heard now. And what's really happening, and we'll get into the different specifics of what's going on, today, but my overall take is that what is smart that the industry is doing right now is it appears that we're leveraging the political might that we've expressed in terms of being potential single issue voters and But I think that right now there's a concerted push from the industry to actually get legislation pushed through and approved that they think is strong enough to last, because it kind of feels like after the election's over, who knows what things were said on the campaign trail or what goes this way or that.
Right.
But until like August or the end of August, there's our chance right now in this window to specifically get some legislation approved and enacted that will kind of safeguard this influence that we have at this time. So there's a ton of things happening today. There's actually a Democratic crypto roundtable with a bunch of folks. It's being hosted by Representative Ro Khanna. It's rumored that Mark Cuban's going to be there. They've invited all the kind of crypto players from the Krakens to the Coinbases and everything like that. So it's interesting to see the Democrats try to say, hey, we're involved with this, we're open to this, and kind of using some of the guidance of a political outsider like Mark Cuban could be an interesting strategy for them. So that's going on, while concurrently this week we saw the Republican Party actually add crypto to their party platform ahead of the Republican National Convention next week. And you're just really seeing both sides, really kind of coalesce around the need to address our audience. And that is a reaction to us coming together and, kind of really putting our money where our mouth is and putting our influence where our mouth is. So I applaud, the actors that are really taking the lead in this, some of the big players that are, helping to generally guide legislation, because I know that the Agricultural Committee had a proposal and it was a Democrat that was behind it. And they're like, hey, we're going to try to get this pushed through. And a Republican was like, you know what, this doesn't have enough teeth to it. This doesn't have enough meat to it. I talked to my folks in the crypto space and they're not really satisfied with this. So just the fact that we kind of have a chance to, kind of help craft something to make sure that it's not just a, kind of a BS little thing that gets passed through and say, hey, we did it. We really are sitting at a really important time.
Yeah, and I think it shows you, like you said, not only with the single issue voter and with people calling the representatives, which I think a lot of people did this year, and they were heard. This is why the Democratic Party is making a shift. But beyond that, it's the money. Like there's big money in crypto now, and stand with crypto. These guys are organized. In Congress today, they're bringing in these guys who work in our space, just good people to tell their stories. So it's again all on the offensive, and to me, it's sad that it's coming down. It kind of feels like it's coming down to these partisan lines right now. I mean, the Republicans, like you said, literally have self-custody of your own cryptocurrency in their platform. So it's self-custody. It's no central bank surveillance digital currency. There's
right to mine. The right to mine.
Yeah, so the miners got a bunch of big wins, and that is literally in the Republican platform. Again, I wish we did not have two choices here, but it shows that they understand the demographics and they're going for every swing voter. If you put this in your platform, could they reverse when they get in power? Yeah, sure. Especially if they hold the White House and both Congresses. But I don't know. It seems like that freedom is kind of baked in there, but I think we still have to be vigilant, but hopefully that stance will continue to push the Democrats to soften, because they can't fight every battle. Like, for every side, if it's going to be this true black and white vote that we've always gotten, this crappy two-party system where, you're like, I don't want to vote for any of them. I want, socially open-minded and fiscally conservative, and nobody's fiscally conservative anymore. To have the country not be, interest to GDP growth. Like, what are we at, 129%? I know last week you said Japan was at 157 or something crazy like that, but we're not much better, and we're the basically reserve currency of the world. So take a look, Disco. I know you're way better at looking than I am. Like on live.house.gov, I think SAB 121's up right now. I don't know if it's actually been voted on, but I think they're talking about it.
Yeah, and just to really quickly kind of overview that. So SAB 121 is kind of the lead piece for the DC side of stuff, at least for today, for sure, right? So basically, that was the piece of legislation that got through. It was actually approved 228 to 121, and 21 Democrats voted in favor of it. And then when it got to Biden's desk, he vetoed it. So now the House this afternoon, maybe right now, and I'll check it in a second, they're voting to overturn the veto, which if you go back to, how a bill becomes a law and all that stuff, right? You need a 2/3 of the House to vote to overturn a presidential veto, meaning that they need to go from 228 in favor to 290. So they're really in search of about 62 votes to kind of take it over the edge and to overturn, Biden's take on it. And it's getting very political because you have Republican senators and stuff putting notes out like, hey, we'll mark this and we'll note that where you stand on this, if you really support crypto or not. So they're using that from that side of it. And just one other kind of footnote on that, fit 21. So, you got the 121s, you got that. So that's where, there's a whole cottage industry of people, kind of diagnosing and explaining what happens in DC.
Stupid names, yeah.
But that vote was 279 to 136, and that had 71 Democrats. So it's not out of the range of possibility that they could, conjure up the difference between the 279 and the 291 and find 11 folks to go on the other side. But it would be a complete, stand up and betrayal to the executive branch, right? Like if they're going to actually veto it, like what's that going to end up doing to Biden and the roundtable and all that stuff they're trying to have? So stay tuned. It's a really,
the Democrats are definitely at a point of weakness right here, and by so many Democrats kind of breaking with this party lines to make sure, and just so people know, Disco, SAB 121 refers back to the facts that banks can custody Bitcoin for people without being a liability. In layman's terms, if SAB 121, if we get rid of all this crap that Gensler is trying to put in, a bank can, just like, you buy your Bitcoin ETF, can custody Bitcoin for you in some way. That's really what it boils down to. So this is more of a big business thing, but it's one more, if we get rid of what Gary had, it's just one more way for crypto to be more a part of the mainstream infrastructure. You already have bankers trying to call me all the time, be like, hey, buy our bonds. I'm like, who buys bonds from a bank? Like, no, stop calling me. But
right.
Yeah. So,
but yeah,
I think honestly, the Democrats lose either way on this one. That veto was in my opinion so stupid, because if they go against him, then the party's in turmoil because they went against the presidential veto, and even more Democrats were like, you know what, we're not going to go against crypto. But like you said, this is one of those records where you said, okay, well, you voted against crypto, and you know how people spin it. A Democrat will be like, well, no, it was because there was these other things in there and I needed to make sure. But at the end of the day, the good news is this is a line that we keep getting to redraw the line in who stands where, and hopefully just keep voting out these anti-crypto people and get the Elizabeth Warren and that whole faction, that mindset out of DC for good.
Yeah. And as I say, we've been talking about, it feels good to fight. And I was peppering a little bit with a little, passion and emotion on, kind of that feeling, because, we've been kind of, painted with brushes that aren't fair for a long time. And just to be able to see kind of the manifestation of, our beliefs becoming, kind of accepted and listened to and heard is a really big step. So, you can get into the Mount Gox, you can get into, Germany and all those things, but then you can also flip the script in your mind and take a look at the things that there is some significant progress. We've never seen, I don't know, you've been in the space a lot longer, but I don't think we've seen advocacy, at the highest ranks, really, getting people to come around. And now we have, Bitcoin Nashville, and there's a lot of rumors about, some pretty big folks that would attend and get on board. And when we were at the Bitcoin event in DC, that was kind of the first time I realized, like, a lot of these people are almost falling over each other to make an appearance and to be able to say, yeah, I get it. And you heard them kind of parroting out, some of the verbiage that we've been hearing for years and years and years. But to hear, multiple senators and representatives be like, oh, self-custody and all these things, like, I guess that's how change happens within the walls of Washington and Congress. So I'm here for that for sure.
Yeah, and it's just funny. Like Disco and I, every week when we go over like what's the most important news, like sometimes we're like, God, it's all politics these days. But it's such a cascading effect from the top of the mountain on down. Again, like I don't know what the best analogy is, but it's just like on the top of the mountain, it's raining. Bitcoin is like the ocean. Like Bitcoin doesn't care, but all of us, as the snow caps are melting with the rain and everything, are on the mountain, like climbing up it. We're like, oh my God, it's like a flood. So it affects us. So, and it affects so many things downstream of us, whether it's ordinals or runes or,
Yeah.
the bigger story is making sure that people can freely transact without these onerous taxes and fees, which, what was Biden proposing, like a 30% tax, 30%
Right.
extra tax on for mining and stuff like that. Just absolute ludicrous. Like, it's just there's no there's it's just quashing innovation like government knows best. But I think the biggest takeaway that I'm already learning with that Uniswap story is like that Chevron deference, and the book is called The Chevron Doctrine if you want to learn all about it, and that's the screenshot we use. Like that is going to probably, for good and for bad in other industries, it is going to open the floodgates and clog the courts, but it is also going to unwind some of this bureaucratic mess that's in Washington right now, and give people like Gary Gensler far less power to interpret something however they want and enforce it however they want, with little to zero recourse. And now we have this recourse, and people are fighting, and I'm here for it. I'm getting my popcorn.
Get your popcorn. I'm gonna get riled up if I see any more injustices out there of people getting served. It's just, dude, getting sued is just such a terrible situation. It's just a bad feeling. So all that, I think we need to protect the individual folks who are, especially those that where it impacts, your life's wealth and everything like that. But then we also are doing this from a bigger perspective with the kind of changing the rules of the road and making sure that we're able to foster success within our own country. So it's as always, it's a lot to kind of take in, and I appreciate taking the time with you guys and with you specifically, Blue, and then with our audience as always. And if you enjoy what you're seeing or what you're hearing, whatever way you're taking in this show, if you would do us the courtesy or the favor of retweets or subscriptions or likes and all that sort of stuff. We don't want to shill our own show, but it is a passion that we work on, and we do take it pretty seriously, and we want to kind of be that that filter that can take all these different headlines and news stories and kind of put them together into the underwater basket weaving, and come away with a theme each week and what we're doing. So I appreciate the opportunity to do this, and anything you guys get to do to support it would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Google, whatever, wherever there's podcasts, we're there. And we're on YouTube, obviously. So just, wherever you like to listen or watch your stuff, please just subscribe and like, because we always forget and we ask at the end, but it helps a ton, because it tells people that it's actual good, thoughtful, independent-minded, and independent media content, and not just, there's so many folks out there who are bought and, who are paid for by big advertisers, even smaller guys, believe it or not. And, they're not giving you the honest scoop, but we're giving you what we see as we see it, including even how we feel about it and all that stuff. So if you think that's important, please like, subscribe, and do all that other stuff. I should have little bells jingling right now and all that crap, but I refuse. I know you do too.
We stand strong. Well, I'm excited for next week, but I wanted to just, as always, let everybody know that we do this show for entertainment purposes only. Don't construe anything as actual financial advice. Do your own research. Enjoy the ride, and enjoy going down the rabbit hole, because it is very fulfilling. So,
yep. Take care, everybody.
See ya.